Skimo's romantic.
Hello and welcome back to Skimo Gold. This is the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. I'm your host, Travis Macy. You can find me at Travis Macy on Instagram and at travismacy.com. That's endurance coaching, personal development coaching, books, keynote speaking, and more. Big thanks to our sponsor, Camp. They make excellent gear for your winter activities like ski mountaineering and also for spring and summertime stuff. Trail running, mountaineering, mountain biking, backpacking, hiking, so on and so forth. Camp has high-end gear for all of those activities. In fact, I was just talking with my friend Mike Hogan, who used a 30-liter Camp ski backpack in the PDG race very recently over there in Switzerland. I assume there were probably lots of other camp gloves, helmets, backpacks, and other items out there in that fantastic event. Also out there in the PDG was today's guest, the American Joe Dombrowski. I just checked the results. Shout out to Joe and his teammates, Chris Jones and Matt Palia. Joe lives over in Europe, as he has for some time. Chris and Matt live in Bend, Oregon, and they finished the race in just over 8 hours, which is moving quite fast, put them right up there time-wise with a number of the top women's teams. Haven't talked to him about the race, but it sounds fast to me, and I hope that they had fun, and we'll hear from Joe shortly about his lead up to that, including doing the Pierre Menta this year and some other events. Joe came onto my radar a number of years ago as a professional cyclist. He was a World Tour cyclist from 2011 until 2023. He was on a number of the top teams, including Team Sky, Team EF, Team UAE, where he rode with a cyclist named Tadej Pogacar, who you may have heard of. And also on Team Astana at the end of his career. And Joe was he was successful. He rode in grand tours and stage races and one-day races. He won the GC, I believe, at the Tour of Utah, and maybe most notably won a stage at the Giro d'Italia, which if you're not familiar with the Giro, it's one of the three grand tours of cycling. The Tour de France, of course, is the most well-known, but there's also a Tour of Spain and a Tour of Italy, which is the Giro d'Italia. And it's like the Tour de France. It's a 3-week race over mountains and plains and every type of terrain, just going day after day at a super high level. And Joe got a win there. So way to go. And he also, it seems to me, just had a neat career as a pro cyclist. I wanted to talk to him because since retiring from pro cycling, he's gotten into Skimo. Here in this interview that he says he's just doing it for fun, but he's doing it at a very high level. We'll hear that he did a vertical this year and was right in there with two of the very best athletes in the sport, and he's having fun and adventures with it. So that's kind of what we're into here. All right, folks, thank you as always for listening, and it's time to roll on Skimo Gold. Joe, welcome to the Skimo Gold podcast. It's fantastic to be here with you today. I've really been looking forward to this. I'm a huge Skimo fan. I'm a huge cycling fan. Both of those come together, and so it's just great to have you here, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, before we get into any cycling in the background, the history, tell us what you've been up to, Joe. You had a looked like a great performance at the Piramenta. I think you've had some ski adventures since then. As we record this here on April 8th, I believe you're looking forward to the PDG coming up next week, and by the time this comes out, that will have happened, so we can see. How that went for you. But yeah, tell us what's been going on in your ski world.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good winter. I've We're lucky, here in the Nice area. Obviously, Nice itself is not known for skiing, but the mountains here locally, we actually get pretty good snow, and there's a lot of ski opportunity. It's not right at the doorstep, but not too far away either. Um, so I got quite a few ski days in around Nice this winter, but also did a number of trips. Spent a lot of December in Aresh, which
Hmm.
a lot of people will know from Piramenta,
Yeah.
um, and also was in Switzerland for a few weeks in February, and more recently. I did a few races. I did a vertical in Aresh, did Piramenta, I did Celaranda about 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and on Friday, I'll head up to Chamonix, and we're actually doing so I'll do PDG later, in I guess that's about a week, 2 weeks from now, but the guys that I'm doing PDG with, we're actually gonna do the Haute Route from Chamonix to Zermatt, um, beforehand. We'll spend then a few days in Zermatt, just, hanging out and also to rest a bit, and then do PDG as kind of a way to get get back. Well, not all the way to Chamonix, but it'll get us to Verbier. Um, so looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. Wow, good for you. Those sound like some awesome adventures. A lot of people have heard of the Haute Route. For those who aren't familiar, remind us, approximate distance, vertical gain, etc. And how are you guys going to do it, and how much time? Is it sort of a race prep mode? Are you going fast and light? Are you having fun? How many times are you going to stop? Give us those kind of details. What you know.
Sure. So I think so we're planning to do it over 3 days, two overnights. The first one is gonna be kind of around Verbier, and then the second night would be at Cabane de Vignette. And then the third day we would work our way to Zermatt. I think that typically people do it over more like 6 days. So we'll be doing a little bit longer days. It's I believe 102 kilometers, and I wanna say the elevation gain is around 8,000 meters. I'm not totally sure, but I actually just saw a couple days ago that, there's a new FKT on the Haute Route. I think Jacques Mood and Boffelli did it in about 13 hours, um,
Mm,
which is pretty fast.
no kidding.
Uh,
That's flying.
yeah. So we won't be doing that. I mean, I think the plan is just to have fun, ski together, and also because PDG is roped up at least for
Hmm.
parts of the race. I think we wanted to kind of ski together with the rope,
Yeah.
but we also just thought it would be cool to kind of start in Chamonix, make our way to Zermatt with a ski tour to kind of get to the race.
Yeah.
We just thought that would be a cool way of doing it. It's definitely, like, logistically, like, we had to kind of get a taxi to take suitcases from Chamonix to Zermatt
Yep.
that will be waiting for us when we get there, and there's a lot of sort of logistics that have been involved, kind of going from place to place on skis. Um, but, yeah, I'm hoping that we have good weather, and I think it'll be a cool trip.
Yeah. That's great, man. Who are you doing these things with? This adventure or, Inaresh, your teammates and friends over the years, Americans, French, other former pro cyclists. Who are you kind of connecting with via these ski adventures and races?
Right. So PDG, I'm gonna do with Chris Jones and Matt Palilla.
Mm,
They both live in Bend, Oregon,
yeah.
both American. Um, Chris is actually also a former pro cyclist.
Yeah, I know. I've met Chris a couple times. Good dude.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a bit older than me. He retired a, a little bit um, longer ago. Uh, I've done one race with him as a teammate in. We did Tros de Grande in 2025 together.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say the the people I ski the most with are people from the area local here to Nice.
mhm,
Just, local friends that, um, like to ski. That's kind of, I would say, how I got into it. I mean, I skied as a kid when I was younger, um, not really touring or skimo, more just resort skiing, kind of grew up with that. Um, my dad also, like, he always loved skiing. He's a ski patroller. He as a volunteer, it's not his full-time job, but, so when we were kids, we always skied, and then when I was a cyclist, I just completely stopped skiing because mostly out of it's not always necessarily stipulated in the contract that you can't ski, but to me, it was just not a risk worth taking. Like, I didn't wanna get
mhm.
injured, um, and have to explain to the team that I blew out my knee skiing or whatever. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so then when I stopped racing, I think like a lot of professional cyclists wanna keep doing sport and being active, and you're kind of keen to explore other things. I mean, I still ride my bike quite a bit, but it's also nice to, now I've gotten more into doing some trail running and skiing and just,
Mm,
more diverse set of activities. Um, and yeah, I just, found some friends here locally that the guy I probably ski the most with, he puts on a set of vertical races here locally at Oron, which is one of the local ski stations.
mm, mhm,
Um, and I had met him on from cycling, and when I stopped, he was like, "Oh, you should come out and try one of the verticals." So I did that, not with any of the lightweight gear at that point, but still had it was fun. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and from there, yeah, we just started skiing together more, and especially in Nice, in the Tine Valley, which is kind of north of Nice a bit. You have a good group of people, him included, and also some trail runners. You've probably heard of Katie Scheid or Germain
mhm.
Grangier.
Yep, yep,
They live out there, and there's
yep.
just like a small but good group of people to ski with. And I would say I kind of through that group got more into skimo and started doing some races.
Yep.
Um, I did a couple in the spring of 2024, and then um, 2025 I did a few races. I I actually did Paramenta the first time in 2025, but unfortunately I broke my ankle the first day. So,
Mm,
um, that was pretty much
dang.
the end of my ski season, and then
Yep.
this year, I just, you know, really enjoyed skiing and doing trips and, doing some of the races, so I've done a little bit more this year and also, stayed injury free, so
Yeah. Good for you. Hmm. I crashed out at Pierre Menta the year before that. It's tough skiing, technical,
Yeah,
and hard. It's hard. It was really hard for me when you're on the limit with those long, hard days, and then you have those really challenging descents. And like you, like I wasn't a downhill ski racer. More running and cycling background, and like, man, people are just flying by you like bullets. And
yeah.
it's a challenging environment for sure.
Well, and the skis are not great going
No,
downhill,
no,
relative to,
yeah.
like, and I don't typically ski on my race skis. Maybe if it's
Mm-hmm.
like just skiing in the resort,
Yeah,
and you just do some resort laps. But I mean, if it's like a powder day, I'm not going to go out on my
yeah, no
little
kidding.
skis.
Yep.
So that takes some getting used to, and yeah, I mean, if it's sort of crusty snow or anything that's not great conditions off piste on the little, 65 race skis is definitely a added challenging element.
Yeah, yeah. How does that compare to you, Joe, to, a world tour cycling descent? I mean, you've been out there in the Giro and the Vuelta and these, just epic climbs, and we've all seen it on TV, going downhill alone or in a small group or in a peloton and, whatever, going 80 or 90 or 100K an hour. Um, in your career, did you feel comfortable and calm, like that was just kind of what you did, or were you scared? Are you more scared on the skinny 65 underfoot skis? How does that compare?
Um, yeah, I think there's an element of this is true in cycling, and I think it's also true in skimo, um, that if you started something young, it's
Mm,
probably easier.
yeah,
Um, I think that in riding in a peloton, you to be comfortable, you have to be habituated to kind of traveling at high speeds, really close to other people. There are
yeah,
crashes that are often out of your control. Um, and, when you're young, you have many years of that experience and habituation. You're probably also less afraid. Um, if you stick a 14-year-old in the middle of a peloton, like they don't have the same sort of instinct as someone in their 30s or 40s to kind of think about the adverse outcomes,
yeah.
if of a crash.
Yep.
Um, so, and I think that there's also, with professional cycling, um, there is really a lot of how you ride in the peloton has a pretty big outcome on the race, especially at that level where, everyone is, eh, if we're speaking to fitness, is at a super high level. There's not really that much margin, um,
Hmm.
for poor Peloton skills. And I think Skimo is similar in that it's a really technical sport. Not just the downhills, but also, even skinning uphill,
Oh,
like
totally.
a certain, I mean, if we're talking about a vertical up a piste, it's not that technical. Maybe if it's flatter and, glide is a bigger component, then there's some technique there. But, you know, um, a technical skin track going up like that can put it this way, you can go the same speed uphill a lot more or a lot less efficiently with,
Yeah.
you know, good or bad technique.
Yep.
Obviously the transitions are really, technical. Um, and then the downhills too. So I I think in some ways, uh, cycling probably preps you a little bit for that in that, um, the maybe your tolerance for risk is a little bit higher. I mean, I'm certainly not a big risk taker on down, I just do this for fun. Like I'm not looking
Yeah.
take huge risk. But it does shift your kind of perspective, because yeah, if you dropped like a normal person on the street in the middle of a World Tour peloton, it'd probably be pretty scary for them. Um,
Yeah.
and after so many years of doing that, you just like that's normal, you know. Um, but there's still, I think, with Skimo, there's so many technical elements that don't really transfer. Um, so I would say probably perception of risk is a little changed by cycling, and then specific knowledge, around nutrition or how to train, that I think that transfers really well. But I think a lot of the technical elements of skiing, um, you know, uh, I mean, even if I look at, uh, as an example, like I did one vertical this winter, of the races I did. It was just a local thing in Aresh, and I was second. Gaucher won, and Bon Mardian was a little bit behind me. And
Mhm.
but like I'm not anywhere even close to the same league as those guys at
Yep.
Pyramenta. They're
Yeah.
just much better skiers than me.
Yep.
They're faster everywhere, and like literally the only place that I could compete with them is in a vertical, because it's
Mhm.
basically a fitness test. Um, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's so easy to close that gap. I think you would have to do a lot
Mm.
of specific training, um, really probably every day over a number of winters to get
Yeah.
to where you're as efficient as those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, it's to make a comparison. Sometimes you'll see, even I don't know, Vanderpool looks, unbeatable on the road bike, and then he comes and he tries to hop on the mountain bike, and it's like, well, clearly his fitness is like, better than everyone, unless Pidcock's in the race as well. But at least recently, it hasn't gone that well on the mountain bike because those skills just aren't quite there. But good job
And
to you.
his bike handling skills are still really good.
Oh yeah, yeah. You watch him in road or cyclocross, and he is incredible, like the best in
Yeah.
both of those. But it's just that slight difference in specificity. But
Mhm.
yeah, good job. I mean, being right with those guys on a vertical, like that's pretty cool. And
Yeah, but I
especially
think
Joe.
only on a vertical.
Yeah, yeah. Well, whatever. Hey, take what you can get. You said you're doing this just for fun. Like, tell us more about that. You were a world tour cyclist, 2011 to 2023, and in that, most of the audience probably knows. I mean, that's your life. That's your job. Like, you literally can't do anything else 24/7, 365. That is your focus, and then you have this shift, and for many people it's a really hard transition. Like, what do I do next? What's my identity? What do I do professionally, for income, for fun, for fitness? It's a real redefining that you've experienced over those last few years. Tell us how Skimo fits in, and like what else has come in. Whether it's I heard you on another podcast talking about entrepreneurial ideas or real estate or whatever. Like, how does that all fit together? And Skimo just for fun, but still obviously at a very high level.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, I've I still enjoy, training and being active, and particularly being in the mountains, I think,
Mm,
above all else. So I'm kind of drawn to mountain sports. I like to be on my mountain bike. I've gotten more and more into trail running and done a few trail running races.
nice.
Skimo also fits into that. Um, and I think, what's been I wouldn't say that I'm super. I mean, I guess in terms of volume and whatever, I still train a lot. I wouldn't say it's super regimented. I kind of more go with my friends, and
Mm,
you know, um, I don't have like a lot of rhyme or reason, but I think I've kept like a relatively high fitness level just on doing what I enjoy doing. I think also it's been fun. uh, running or skiing to do um, some races and competing a bit because there's a lot of margin to improve.
Mm,
Um, like I don't have a lot of interest to do a bike race. It's like I've kind of done that, and my ability as a cyclist is only going to go down from here.
yeah,
Um, but realistically, I didn't really ever run before, but realistically, running like I could improve quite a lot because my
totally.
sort of baseline is pretty low.
Yeah.
Um, so I think just having um, little carrots like that. I mean, another thing I signed up for a few days ago was to do Sierra later this
Cool.
year.
Yeah.
Um, I actually did it last year for the
Okay.
first time, which was cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to train a little bit more. Like I think last year with the broken ankle, I didn't run that much,
Yep.
um, and I had only. I mean, it's a 31K race, and I think I'd only run like 15 or 20K before that
Mm,
as a longest
yep.
run.
Yeah.
And I was probably only running a couple days a week.
Yep.
So I was not super well prepared. And I was thinking, okay, this summer, maybe I'll try and do a little bit more of a serious prep um,
Yep.
within what I can handle. Cause I've also seen that, you know, having not a big running base, but having the fitness from cycling, it's easy to kind of overdo.
Oh
Um,
yeah. You can smash your legs pretty good.
yeah, and it's easy to get injured.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I think, you know, um, I've just kind of followed doing what's been fun for me, and it's just been kind of an adventure. And I think the thing with Skimo too is like a lot of the races by default are team races. Um, and now that I've done a couple winters of races, um, I've gotten to where people ask, like I did Celaranda a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't planning to do it, but someone asked me
Mhm.
at the last minute. So you get to meet people, and then from there you kind of find people and that are looking for a teammate or want to do this
Yeah.
race or that race, and you just
Yeah.
kind of go with it like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, again, back to like just for fun and a life experience, what a great way to connect with like minded people. And sometimes you make a great new friend, or sometimes you just race with someone once and that's enough. But either way, it's awesome.
For
What
sure.
about outside skiing? Are you doing other again, it was the Jack Burke podcast from maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Listeners, check that one out. That was you guys went deep. That was Joe Rogan style. It was like 2.5 hours. Like I got a whole bike ride and a half of another one out of it. It was good stuff. You were thinking about real estate, maybe buying businesses or any, have you gotten into any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I get so well, I'll say one project I'm working on right now. I don't know if it's gonna work because we're only at a prototype phase.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily want to say everything that it is because it's kind of proprietary, but
Okay.
we've been working on essentially like how can I say alternatives to plastics in sport.
Mm,
Um, and kind of our exposure to plastics. And I'd like to do something with that. Um, and hopefully yeah, we kind of came out with the first prototype um, about 2-3 months ago, but still kind of seeing how feasible that might be, um, just on the manufacturing side and whatever. So if I could get that to work, I think that would be pretty cool.
cool.
I don't have any background in, product development or, selling things, or it literally was just, an idea that I think from my own experience as an athlete and things where I thought that there could be some interesting innovation. Um, So that's kind of probably what I've been putting most of my effort into.
Nice.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, nothing too big. Mostly just been skiing a lot and doing a lot of. We've done a lot of traveling. We've we've considered potentially um, moving elsewhere, but not sure on that yet either. So I think, as you kind of mentioned, is like when I think, yeah, after a long career as a professional sports person, like there's a lot to digest, um, and kind of adapt to as you decide, what you're
Yeah.
going to do next. And um, I think I, I wanted to really take my time with that. I didn't want to be in a rush, just you know, doing something to do something.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's kind of slow moving, but at the same time, I'm like, I look at it as kind of a point in time where you can really think about, you know, what do you actually want in life, and what are your what sort of life do you want to build, and what lifestyle do you want to have? Um, which I think is important because I think a lot of people don't actually know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that means that, you spend a few years like traveling around skiing and, doing different things until like the good idea comes along or something clicks, like to me, that's fine. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I would say a few little projects, going on, and then otherwise, yeah, just doing a lot of sport and traveling and enjoying.
Yeah, good for you, Joe. I love it. As you consider lifestyle design, alone and probably with your wife as well. What are the values or themes that you sort of prioritize or like to move towards and embrace?
Um, I think that I highly value, I would say, time and location independence and
Mm,
autonomy to some degree. I think
hmm.
as a cyclist, you know, uh, I mean, I guess the team is your boss, but like you don't really have a boss. Like you're kind of independent, so to speak. Um, and I think also that uh, I was probably what I was most lucky to get out of cycling when I look back on it now was not necessarily the cycling itself and doing the races that that was like always my dream was to race all the grand tours and to ride in the big teams and to win races, and that was great. But I think that actually the experience, particularly of from a pretty young age, living abroad and just figuring things out on my own, I think that was a pretty formative experience. And um, I think the biggest value in that was essentially opening my eyes to, kind of, I would say, like, different paths, whether it's career path or where you choose to live. I think it develops a lot of agency, I would
Mm,
say, to have that kind of experience. And I think then, um, it just, uh, it the value in that was essentially that, like, you're not you've kind of gone off and done something that is, not a typical path, is pretty difficult. You did it at a young age, which is, pretty, big diversion from like maybe what a lot of your peers are doing. And I
mhm.
think it just makes you realize like you can do that again. And you also don't have to follow the rules of what, society or whoever says, you know, uh, that you should have some high status white collar office job, or like you should live in this place, or
Yeah.
whatever. um so I think, yeah, I've always just, uh, I like, some degree of autonomy. So
Mhm.
I guess when you ask like what do I value in sort of lifestyle design is, yeah, autonomy, independence. I think, being in being like location independent, I would say is pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people don't have that independence. If you're tied to a job that means that you have to commute to XYZ
Yeah.
location, like you're stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Very cool, Joe. I'm hearing a lot of intentionality and reflection, and really defining success on your own terms, which I love and value as well. I'm curious. You've been an American living overseas, for well over 15 years now. Is your wife American as well? And furthermore, have you noticed a difference in how people perceive you as an American over that time? Particularly, there's been a few different presidents during that time, and particularly, at a time now where I could imagine there's a maybe different perception of America on a world scale. Have you
Hmm.
perceived any of that, just being an American living in Europe?
Um, yeah. So my wife is also American. She is from the same area, Virginia, as me. We
Hmm.
didn't know each other at when we were growing up. She was living in Boston. We actually initially met in Switzerland. About 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, do I think we're perceived differently? Uh, I don't know if I mean, certainly, like, if we talk about the EU, currently, like, in the immediate time frame, um, there's, like, obviously been kind of a lot of tension between EU countries and the US and, back and forth. I don't know if I've felt necessarily from people abroad, um, that, you know, uh, people are, like, unhappy
Yeah.
with me or whatever as an American. Um, I do find that, uh, sometimes with other Americans abroad, like, when you meet another American who's in, I don't know, you're in Italy or France or Switzerland or whatever, um, I do find sometimes, there's almost this, like, sizing up of, like, where this person is on the political spectrum.
Mm.
And I
Hmm.
I do think that, like, what I see from the outside, is that it seems like the US is, like, kind of divisive or polarized at the moment. Um, and I feel like there's more of that now than there used to be, um, which I don't love.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that's just been the trend of the way things are going, like, the last 5, 10 years is that it's, like, a kind of divisive
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And what about relocation? Would you guys ever think about coming back to the US, or is it more other places in Europe, or live in a Resh full time, or
Yeah.
interested in sharing any of those ideas?
Yeah, we've thought about, I think we like the idea of being somewhere more alpine.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I love Nice, and, we're happy, like, we really like our place here. Um, I think, you know I just really and my wife also love being in the mountains, and I like doing, mountain sports and also, I love, like, living in a European city center that's very walkable,
Hmm.
and, you're not car dependent, unless I go, like, take my mountain bike or go skiing somewhere, I don't really take the car ever. I just
Yeah.
walk everywhere, which is great. But I can also see kind of the draw of being somewhere a little bit more out or in a smaller town. Um, where we're kind of looking potentially at moving to Switzerland.
Hmm.
Um, but that is like TBD. Immigration there is not as easy as it is into
Mm.
other EU countries for people who don't have an EU passport.
Mm.
Um, so, uh, yeah, we've thought about that. I think that would be kind of tied to this little project that I've been working on.
Yep.
But that's still all sort of TBD. Um, the US, maybe, but uh, honestly, like in a lot of ways, I think myself and my wife both prefer the European lifestyle. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's different, uh, and there are a lot of things that I love about the US. I mean, there there are things that I would say are better about the US for sure. Um, but I, I don't know. Maybe it's because from kind of a pretty like more or less most of my adult life, I've had a lot of exposure to European living, and maybe that I've just you slowly become more accustomed to that.
Yeah.
But I just I like you know uh, kind of even just if you look at how European cities are or towns, like they tend to be more density oriented. There's less sprawl, so you kind of have
Yeah.
like a city, and then you have nature next to a city.
Yep.
Less car dependent. I think the food is better.
Oh yeah.
Not just in like in the cuisine, but also like I think the actual food at what you buy at the grocery store is of better quality.
Yeah.
Um, there's some things that are certainly less efficient than the US. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't say no, but it hasn't been on our immediate radar to move back. And then if we did, I guess it's kind of a question of where. I mean,
Hmm.
I'd still like. I think I love being outside and being in the mountains and love doing sports. So I think that would be a you know if if you put me in I don't know the deep south or the middle of like Pan Flat, Texas, like it's probably not for me. So
Yeah.
I think it's a question of where.
Big thanks to Camp for supporting the Skimo Gold podcast. I've been using Camp products for almost 2 decades now. Ski mountaineering, adventure racing, trail running, and multi-sport adventures. I love the packs. Been using them for Skimo for a long time. Probably my favorite current Camp pack is the Outback 20. Camp packs have all the features you need and none of the junk that you don't. Check them out. Camp. Thanks again for supporting the podcast, guys. Thanks for sharing all that, Joe. You're getting me thinking. Like the longest I've spent in Europe nonstop was about 6 weeks, and I same thing. I love it. I love the pace. I love the vibe and all of the cultures I've been in. I love Catalonia. I'm sure you've spent time in various towns,
Yeah,
and there like I really especially love that. Yeah, maybe I'll see you over there. Who knows? If I can, my kids are 13 and 15. If they go to college in Europe, that's a good ticket for my wife and I to
or maybe you could
spend.
move sooner and they go to high school.
Well, yeah, I know. That's man, my son's already in high school. They're it's hard to beat Salida High School here. We got some good
Okay,
good stuff going on in Salida, this little school. Good sports teams,
yeah,
good culture, good community. It's sort of, I'm getting on a tangent. Salida in some ways feels like that European town, the grid streets, the walking, the biking, the community. It's like it's a slow pace of life and feels a little bit like Europe at times. We got some good coffee, maybe not quite the best food, but
yeah,
it's not bad. Um,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, you could always try it for like come over, rent a place for a few months, and just see
Hmm.
you know
Yeah.
what it's like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It gets as the kids get older, it's harder to leave for bigger chunks. But we're going for about a month here coming up. I doubt we'll make it to Nice, but mostly in Italy. And in fact, I think we're going to see a Giro stage. Joe, you
Oh,
have
cool.
won a stage of the Giro. I'd love to get into some more, cycling minutia, memories, etc. What man, what was that like to win a stage in a grand tour?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I think. for a rider like I was, it's pretty much like the the pinnacle. I mean, um,
Totally.
I didn't really, I wasn't a sprinter, didn't have like a huge GC ability. Um, I mean, maybe I could do some of that, but it was, I I think hunting stages in the Grand Tours is probably one of the things I was most suited to. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's cool because there's a lot of things that have to come together to win a stage. Uh, if you think in a Grand Tour you have 21 stages, how many days are either like a sprint or you know a GC day to where like the GC group wins the stage, and there's not that many left over for other people to win because a lot of the same riders. You look at a Grand Tour, like probably 4 or 5 riders win almost a majority of the stages, and then you have,
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
guys that can win a handful. Um, so it's kind of a matter of picking those days, being in the breakaway or in the right move, that going to the line, having the right composition in the breakaway. Like there's so many things that have to line up just right. And then, you being on a good day and able to deliver. And I guess there was a number of times over the course of my career that was like close, um, to a stage win here or there, or, for whatever reason, something doesn't work out. So it's pretty cool to kind of have all the stars align. It was kind of a bittersweet week in that I won the fourth stage in the Giro that year. And then I was also sitting second on GC with like a pretty good buffer over a number of the GC favorites with a mountain day coming up in 2 days.
Mm.
And I was pretty sure I would take the pink jersey, which would have also been really cool. I mean, to wear
Yeah.
a leader's jersey in a Grand Tour is a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, but I crashed out the next day and went home.
Oh man.
So yeah, I mean that's cycling though. It's like
Yeah.
the highest of highs and lowest of lows sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I heard you talk in the other interview, just the role of chance in sport and in life. And that's a great example. Like sometimes you do, whether it's sport or business or your upcoming project, like you can do everything right and do a great job, and like sometimes it comes together and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you
Yeah,
crash
totally.
because like the guy in front of you hit the paint at the wrong angle, or just the wrong little shadow. Like a lot of it's out of our control.
Right. Yeah, and I think, even when I look back to um I mean I spent 2 years on Trek Livestrong before I signed my first World Tour contract and I went to Team Sky. But
Yep.
even with Trek Livestrong, I mean, it was literally a friend of mine from my hometown who he's older than me and was a bike racer, um, who was good friends with kind of the management of that team, who just told him to look out for me. And later that summer, I had a email from Axel Merckx asking if I wanted to come do some races with the team later in the year. And it's stuff like that that like I, I think it's easy with success in anything to kind of sometimes for people to think that it was all them, you know,
Mm.
but actually,
Yeah.
like, that was just a random, chance that, um, someone kind of helped line up that opportunity for me. And then, yeah, obviously, I put in all the work and I had some innate level of talent to be able to make that next step. But actually, it could have also gone the other way, and you remain sort of unnoticed. And I'm sure that there's another sort of Pogacar level cyclist out there somewhere that is just unknown. Um,
Yeah.
so there is, I think, in life, whether it's sport or business, career opportunities, whatever it may be. Um, there's an element of just, the even the people that get to the very top of something, I think like you have to admit that some of it is just luck. And then when you have that opportunity, really running with it and making the most of it and, not wasting it.
Yeah, totally. Very, very good. Yeah, or maybe the next Pog is Paul Seixas. We shall
Yeah.
see. 19-year-old looking. I mean, even just to yesterday, there was the start of the what's it the It's Zulia tour. Kids looking tough. Well, you saw today about that same age, right? His first couple years on UAE. I think you guys overlap for a season or two. What was that like? I think maybe you did a couple races together. I mean, this was looking back, it's like, yes, he was a fantastic 20-year-old who had won the tour, but of course we didn't know what would happen. How was that? And how is it being on Team UAE in that time? You know, they were a great team, maybe not quite the juggernaut that they are now. What do you think looking back on that period and riding, probably with the best cyclist ever?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think, probably the longer that I'm out of racing professionally, probably the cooler it, like I can
Yeah.
imagine it in 25 years, it's going to be like, oh yeah, I rode with the modern day Eddie Merckx, as a
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, it's a super team. They're really well organized. It's one of the best run teams that I rode for sure. Um, Also the ambiance in the team is nice. I think that they have a nice international group of riders. Just the atmosphere is a good one. And, you know, I remember thinking then that Tade was gonna really I thought that he had a long runway for how he could keep performing like that because it it seems easy for him. And I don't mean easy in the sense that like obviously he's really strong, we can all see that. But there's a certain sort of like lightness about
Mm,
the way that he is, like, that he doesn't get, flustered or ruffled about, stress, and,
mm.
you know, eh, being a pro cyclist is a really high stress career, despite what people might think from the outside. You have a lot of pressure to perform, and especially at that level, when you're kind of the top guy in one of the top teams, you have a lot of pressure on you, and I think that can be something that can really eat at guys and get to where, people get to that level in sport because they're doing something that's a dream for them. But I think it's not uncommon after several years in the sport. It's like kind of a meat grinder, and you get to the
Yeah.
point where you're a bit tired of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep that level of focus for a long time, especially if you're easily stressed, or you don't deal with pressure well. Um, and at least my read on him is that he's really good at managing that, um, which I think in terms of longevity of a career, for a guy like that, that's so much, you know, I mean, he goes more or less to every race as the leader,
Yeah.
expected to win. I think I saw a stat like he's raced 3 times this year. He's won all 3 races.
Yeah.
I feel like someone said also he won the last 4 races he did. Like he hasn't basically all the races he does, he wins.
Yeah. The
Um,
last four monuments, I think. And yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, it's crazy. Um, Especially considering that now pro cycling is more competitive. Even from the time that I turned pro in like my first year in Team Sky was 2013. There's a big difference in the level of the peloton then versus now,
Yeah.
and you know uh, that level keeps going up and up and up. Um, and that level of dominance, um, when I think the margins have really been compressed, particularly over the last 5 years, I would say there's been an acceleration in that. Is is just really impressive. I mean,
Yeah,
that he's like got to be one of the most impressive athletes the world has ever seen.
totally. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it seems that everyone's power numbers are getting better, and incredibly, so are his. Like
Yeah,
his continue to get better faster than anyone else. And I would agree, Joe. I mean, of course, I don't know Tade, but I what I love to see and why I love watching these races with my son, who's a total Tade fan, is you see a lot of athletes when they win it's a look of relief. And relief is okay. And you totally get that, all that pressure, all the buildup and everything. It seems to me when Tade wins, like he's happy, and that's
yeah,
there's a difference in that experience, and it's exactly what you said. Whether it's his innate wiring, whether it's I'm sure over the years he's probably done more and more mental training work with all of the best services and such, but like he really does just seem happy, and it seems to me that he's just being and expressing himself, and the way he does that is with biking, and it's how long that lasts or doesn't last, we'll see, and
yeah, for
he
sure.
seems pretty self-aware. He may, whether it's sooner or later, he might just be like, oh, this isn't the thing anymore, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if he stopped now, it's like he's done. There's not a lot left to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I think that you know, uh, it's with a sport like that, it's so hard, and to you really have to love it to keep performing at that level, because it really
yeah,
is that like half a percent of extra give that makes such a difference when there's such small margins. Um, so I just think that for like a happy bike rider is a fast bike rider.
totally. Yeah, I coach endurance athletes, and that's like one of my foundations is like happy is fast, and we have to start with that foundation of wellness and human connection, and sometimes that means doing less training, it means having more fun, maybe a little bit less structure. Those things are absolutely essential. As we get close to the end here, Joe, I want to ask you about a time in your career that was I would imagine, quite a speed bump, both physically and psychologically. This is around 2014. You have this iliac artery condition, followed by surgery, and followed by what seems to me quite a long period of both uncertainty, like is this going to work or not work? Can I be back at the level? And also a long period of just not exercising, and that's hard
Mhm.
physically, but it's also all of us know really really hard mentally. Give us the cliff notes on that story, what you learned, if you have any advice to other athletes going through times where like, hey, we can't do the thing and we got to figure out other ways to be and thrive and be well, be okay, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that condition is if you're not aware of it, it can take a while to kind of figure out, which was the case for me.
Yeah,
Um, in that, you know, it it's not like you break your collarbone, like it's obvious what happened. You know
yeah,
what the recovery is gonna be. Okay, you do the surgery, you can be on the trainer in a week. Everything is pretty clear. Um, it took me probably a year where I was dealing with that before I kind of pinpointed what the issue was. Um, and then uh, we diagnosed that I had pretty significant lack of blood flow to my left leg, and then I started looking at surgery options because it was sort of like probably a career ender unless we found a fix for that. Which at that time, I was only a year or 2 into my career, and I really could only think about, like, how am I gonna continue to be a professional bike racer.
yeah,
Um, I didn't really think at all about, like, what's the risks of this or, could there be any side effects or whatever.
yep,
And did the surgery. I think it was about 2 months of really, like, 0 activity besides maybe some light walking and stuff like that. I wanted to be really careful about kind of coming back from that. You know, there was, like, famously a professional cyclist that had the operation and died,
Mm,
shortly after, because it is, like, a pretty major artery, and,
yep.
basically, they kind of open it up, and you have, like, this endofibrosis on the inside that's a response to basically, like, mechanical, stress from it can come from a number of things, but mine basically the artery had kind of been tethered to the psoas, and then all that repetitive hip flexion, being on the
Yep.
bike,
Yep.
and they basically put a graft on it, Dacron, which is like a plastic. They use it in sailboat sails, among other things. And they stitch
Yep.
that in, and they kind of widen also the profile because it doesn't dilate anymore, at least in that section because it's plastic.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, then just kind of a long, slow return to activity. I was in Team Sky at the time, and they were really actually gracious about. I didn't really race the rest of the year, and they gave me plenty of time to kind of recover from it. And I think it's a number of things are difficult, like having an injury where you are unsure of when you're going to find a solution or how long it's going to last is difficult,
Yeah.
particularly for endurance athletes who are always very kind of, at least what I see is like they're often very structured and goal oriented and want to tick the box. And sometimes you just don't have an answer.
Yeah. Yep.
And that, and also dealing with, not training, like similar, I think a lot of endurance athletes, probably to a fault sometimes. Um, I don't want to say they're addicted to training, but like there's an element of like, if I'm not training, I'm getting worse. Which, yes, to some extent, that is true. If you don't train long enough, you
Yeah.
will get worse. But, um, you know, part of managing training and recovery and injuries is sometimes you can't train, and sometimes it's in your best interest not to train. Um,
Yeah.
so I think you know that was difficult just for a number of reasons, like uncertainty, like would I ever kind of come back to a good level? You know, that was probably my biggest concern was, is this going to impact me the rest of my career? And, will I ever get back to a level that I'm, happy with? Um, and then, yeah, there was a period of time managing the downtime. Um, but that I think wasn't, I think I also was like found comfort in the fact that I had actually found the problem. Cause when
Yeah.
it, when it's something that's going on for a year, it's pretty fatiguing, um, to kind of not have an answer. Going back to like, I just think that particularly endurance athletes are very kind of, they tend to often be really structured people that want validation, and training is for them, like often some form of validation.
Hmm. Yep.
And yeah, sometimes I think as an athlete, you actually have to get away from always thinking that, the training is like this form of validation, and that like you don't actually have control over everything.
Yeah.
It's just like you think in your mind you do, but you don't. And you sometimes you just have to be flexible and roll with the punches.
Yeah. That's great, Joe. That's real wisdom right there. And you had experience at a relatively young age that you wouldn't have had that experience by choice, but it forced you to grapple with where is my validation coming from? Where else can I get it? Even brain chemistry, we those of us who exercise pretty much every day, there's definitely a chemical component. And if that's taken away or we need to do things differently, we have to figure out what are the other ways to regulate myself, to be happy, to be calm. What are the other tools? And sometimes illness, injury, aging, it forces
Yeah.
us to grapple with those things. And what you said, Joe, is so wise. And then a lot of it comes down to that, like, okay, that happiness or that being first, and then going on to the doing, of the exercise, um, and sport. What about head injuries? That's another, concussion, other types of TBI, common in cycling, common in skiing and other sports. Did you have any as a pro cyclist, or do you suspect any, or did you learn anything? Do you have any thoughts on sort of concussion protocol in the pro peloton?
Yeah. Yeah, I had so when I crashed out of the Giro in 2021, it was the only Grand Tour I didn't finish. Yeah, because of a crash. I had a concussion there. Uh, it was quite close to the finish, like a few K from the finish.
Yep.
So I kind of slowly got back on the bike and just rode to the finish very slowly myself. Yeah, I mean, that's a can of worms. I think it's really hard in a sport like cycling where the sport doesn't stop. It's not like
Yeah.
football where like, okay, we can stop the game. The race
Yeah.
doesn't stop. In only in extreme, the only time I've seen races stop is when there's too many riders hurt, because they normally have ambulances in the caravan. When there's no more ambulances left, then a lot of times they neutralize the race because like if something were to happen, they don't want that there's no medical um, you know, on available. Um, so yeah, I think that's been talked a lot about recently in the last few years. Like how do you kind of have a protocol in place when a lot of times the riders and the team want to get the rider back in the race as soon as possible. Um, but at the same time, like you want to think about the risks that the rider is, potentially exposing themselves to if they're getting back on the bike in a peloton, which is, high speed, very close to a lot of other people, high risk of crashing. What risk does that pose for the rider and also potentially also to other people around them? Um, I think there's been pretty good steps with that in the last few years. And I think in general, the teams are pretty good at assessing that on the spot. Um, I think it's hard for it to be perfect and for
Yeah.
just given the nature of the sport, concussion or other injuries, uh, i- the the kind of default is definitely to just ride through it and get to the finish. Especially
Yeah.
for stage racing and grand tours where, okay, if you can get to the finish, even if you're, 30 minutes behind, it doesn't matter. Just get to the finish and then we can assess after the
And then
stage.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's where gets complicated in that, you're essentially out of the race if you don't uh, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's a good, could you say, oh, like if if they did an assessment and they were out of the race, can they get back in? I don't know that there's a good solution to that, but I do think that there's been good proactive steps within the teams, and team doctors are generally very proactive in assessing that. And from what I've seen, like team doctors will pull riders from races, sometimes going against what team directors or the riders themselves want. Um, just protecting the rider's own interest, like in their health. Which I think is a good thing. Um,
Totally.
but yeah, like I said, I think it's just a it's cycling's tricky managing crashes like that in that it's just a different sport where the race never stops, and you realistically only have a couple minutes at the most to kind of decide what, if you can carry on or not. And after that, like, you're pretty much out of the race, which in a 3-week race, if that happens week 1, that's pretty consequential.
Totally. Yeah, it's hard, man. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, and I can imagine, myself as a 20 something athlete, particularly when they're at that level. You've put your life into this thing. It's your job. You're probably fighting for a contract for the next year, or even if you're the GC guy, I mean, you're being paid 5 million plus to win. Like, the default is if you crash, you get back on and then see if you can make it. And there's also that pressure on the team, on the DS in the car, everyone. It's like we're here to win. And yes, someone's life and wellness might be on the line. I mean, like I think Quinn Simmons has had some good reflections about, a few years ago in the tour, having a concussion, but then he continued, and he felt his recovery was delayed.
Yeah,
Potentially, months and years. Or I'm right now. Again, I don't know Juan Ayuso or much about it, but I look at Perry Nice. He has this crash in the rain. We don't see the crash on TV. A bunch of guys go down. He gets on, he's on his bike and he's waving around, and then he basically falls off and he's lying there on the side of the road puking, which to me is a sign of probably a serious head injury. I don't know why else you'd be puking. So of
right.
course he's out of the race. He clearly can't go on. But now, I don't know what we are a few weeks later, and he's racing again, and maybe he's ready, maybe not. Some of these symptoms, they can come on over time. And, at least the race this week so far, he doesn't look like himself. I hope
Sure.
that he's okay. I hope he's back. I can imagine the pressure. This was a big transfer in the news. Little Trek paid whatever 10 million euros for him or something. Like it's a high pressure situation. I hope
Yeah,
that he's not doing too much too soon to try to compete at the Tour of Itzulia.
sure. Well, and I think just broadly speaking, professional cycling's a really dangerous sport. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I I would say it's probably one of, if not the most dangerous. Just the nature of traveling at that speed around, so close to 200 other people on what's not a closed course. It's not MotoGP or Formula One where,
yeah,
the course is designed for people to crash and crash as safely as possible. Um, so yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to I don't really know what to say other than it's really dangerous. Unfortunately, I think the feeling in the peloton is that it's getting more dangerous. I don't know what the stats actually say about that. I feel like I agree with that. I think that I think that the pressure in the teams is higher. I think the professionalism in the sport is higher. I think there's at least in the riders' heads, maybe more at stake. And I think also something that changed is like you have more young riders coming in a position even to win races. Whereas even like when I turned pro, I feel like
yeah.
there was a little bit more of a hierarchy in the peloton
Mhm.
that demanded respect. Like I just remember my Neo Pro year doing some stupid things and, riders that I really respected calling me out on it to where
Mm,
like I would then ride, more defensively or
yeah,
whatever. And I don't think that that really exists as much anymore. I think in part due to young guys coming in and they're winning straight away. So there isn't this sort of
yeah,
hierarchical, you know, like sheriff of the peloton who kind of keeps things in order. I think that there's just less respect than there used to be. Um,
yeah,
there could be some equipment aspects to that. I mean, the bikes are getting faster, everything's more aero. With disc brakes, you can really brake at the last moment.
yep,
So, yeah, there's a lot of you know, elements of that. And, you know, I don't really know what the answer is. I hope that, I remember watching the tour a couple years ago, and Mark Matteo, the boss of FDJ, was saying, which I think there could be some truth to it, that essentially, like, we need to do something because
Mhm.
parents of young kids are not going to want to let their kids do cycling, because you turn on
Yeah.
the Tour de France and the first week it's just massive crashes everywhere.
Yeah.
And, I think in the US, with, with American football, you've seen some of the stuff in the NFL with concussions and whatever. And I actually think that it probably has had some impact on participation rates for
Mhm.
football in the US, where some parents are saying, like, I don't want
Totally.
my kid to play football and, get his head knocked around all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would not want my kids to play football. And also, if I had a child, who loves cycling and was like getting close to that pro level, especially on the road, I would be. I've often thought, well, I don't think either of my kids are on that trajectory, but I've often thought, like, wow, I would. On the one hand, I hear you talking about the life and the agency and the travel, and I'm like, it is awesome, and it would really scare me as a parent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's yeah. On one side, like, getting to do your dream career is awesome, and it's really a lucky position to kind of be able to capitalize on that. And like I said, like, I think all the kind of tangential stuff was what was most valuable. Not even necessarily the cycling, but, living abroad and meeting people from all over and learning multiple languages, and, that exposure and what that does for you as someone, at 20 years old. I think that's an education you can't buy, like,
Yep.
I would take that over going to university any day of the week. Um, but yeah, it's also a really dangerous sport. It's realistically, like, I would guess that most guys don't have that long of a career. I mean, you see, like, blockbuster salaries for, GC leaders and whatever, but I think probably a lot of guys race for a few years and then they don't find another contract.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's it's uh it's not an easy place to get to or to stay. But yeah, I mean, it's also was like a great gift for sure.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, Joe, I could talk to you about cycling and skiing all day long, but I want to be respectful of your time. This has been awesome. I know the audience is gonna really enjoy it as I have. I'm excited to see where things go for you, whether it's Skimo or adventure, your mountain lifestyle, your anti-plastic product. Very curious and interested about that. We spent, man, how many drinks do you take out of your plastic bottle that you've had for 10 years or your soft flask? Or I know Team UAE, they had, was it last year they came out with some bottle that's like it's a super lightweight bottle, like it's almost made of
Mhm.
paper. I don't know what it's made of, but you're making something better, I would guess, Joe. My
Hope
last
so.
question to you, I live here in Salida. I'm looking north there. I can almost see Leadville, Colorado. I know that you've done the Leadville 100 at least one time. You think you'll ever come back to anything like that, or was that enough for the Leadville?
Maybe. I Yeah, I don't have like a great pull to do bike races, but I would do, a mountain bike race here or there.
Yeah.
I think there's a trail running race there, is there not?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is
Started
there a
with the
Leadville
run.
100 trail race?
Yeah, man. 1983. That's what got it all started. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I've dabbled some in trail running. I don't know if I have it in me to do 100 miles, like a UTMB or, something like
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, I do a few more this year and get hooked and do longer ones.
Yeah.
That 100 miles of running seems really long to me.
It is.
But,
It is long. It hurts.
yeah, never say never.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, they have, in the Leadville series, they do have a half marathon that goes from town up to Mosquito Pass, up 13,000
Mhm.
feet and back. And then they have a marathon, and then they have the Silver Rush 50 bike and running race, which is pretty a cool mountain bike race. I mean, it's not much single track, but a lot of two track Jeep roads, and really steep up and down. Whereas, as you saw in the 100, it's, some road tactics, a lot of drafting and such. The 50 course is more of a real mountain bike or trail running race. So yeah, you can come build through it. Joe, if you sign up, drop me a line. Come stay with us in Salida and do your
All
high
right.
altitude training camp here.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Joe. Is there anywhere people should they find you on Instagram, Strava, just up in the mountains, in the dark in the PDG? Where should people look for you?
Any of those, I'm there.
All right, man. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, thanks as always for listening to Skimo Gold. This is the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. Big thanks to Joe for joining us. Really enjoyed talking with him about Skimo and biking and life, wishing Joe and his family the best moving forward. Thanks as always to our sponsor, Camp, for supporting this podcast. If you're looking on the video, this is probably my favorite camp pack. It's called the Raid Vest, and I use this thing all the time. I use it as a carry-on or personal item bag on the plane. My laptop and everything else fits in there. And what I like about that is then when I get to my destination, hopefully it's somewhere adventurous where I can get out for some runs, hikes, skiing, biking, whatever. I can use this same pack for any of those activities. It's small enough to be transportable and convenient, but also big enough to fit absolutely everything I would need for any sort of day trip or adventure. So please check out that camp gear coming in from Italy when you can. Thanks to you, the listeners, for joining us, for being a part of the audience. We've got not an enormous audience. We're not the Joe Rogan show here, but we have a very consistent audience, and we appreciate you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing. Those things make a big difference. And thanks also for sharing this podcast with your friends. Maybe it's people who are into Skimo, but also maybe it's other people who you share your summer sports with, biking, running, trekking, hiking, whatever. They may be interested in this as well. So please text this episode on over to someone else. We'd really appreciate that. All right, folks, that's about enough for now. Have a good one, and we will catch you next time on Skimo Gold.